I still remember the night my wife, Marleene, sat me down at the kitchen table with a nervous smile. The dim glow of our old chandelier flickered slightly, as if the universe itself was warning me that what was about to come would shatter everything I thought I knew. "I've been doing some thinking," she began, her fingers tapping against the side of her wine glass, "and I feel like we should be more open with each other." At first, I thought she was talking about communication, something we had struggled with lately. But then she exhaled sharply and said the words that made my stomach twist. "I want to try an open marriage." I blinked. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat. Marleene had always been an independent woman, but this was out of nowhere. We had been married for 8 years. Sure, things had settled into routine, but wasn't that normal? Hadn't we built a life together? "Are you serious?" I asked, half laughing, half hoping this was some kind of weird joke. Her expression didn't change. She was dead serious. "It's just something I've been thinking about. I feel like we got married too young and I never really explored. I love you, but I don't want to grow old wondering what I missed out on." My hands clenched into fists under the table. She loves me? But the conversation spiraled from there. She was careful, cautious in her wording, assuring me that this wasn't about replacing me, but about enhancing our marriage. She wanted freedom. She wanted to see other people but still come home to me. Like I was supposed to be okay with that. And maybe I should have walked away right then. Maybe I should have told her no and let that be the end of it. But something inside me snapped. Some dark curiosity, some bitter acceptance. If she wanted to open the door, I was going to walk through it. "Fine," I said after a long silence. "If that's what you want, let's do it." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I simply agreed. And the way her face lit up with relief made my stomach churn. She had expected me to fight. Maybe she had wanted me to beg. But I didn't. Instead, I made a decision that would change everything. The moment I agreed, I saw the shift in her. She had gotten what she wanted. Over the next few weeks, she became more distant, but weirdly happier, like a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. And then I did something she didn't expect. I didn't go out looking for some stranger. I didn't scroll through dating apps or seek out a fling. I turned my attention to the one person Marleene would never have considered a threat, her younger sister, Evelyn. If I'm being honest, I never planned for things to go this way. When Marleene first suggested the open marriage, I was disgusted, furious even, but a part of me wanted to play it cool. If she wanted to explore, fine. I would too. I had no intention of sitting at home while she was out meeting God knows who. I didn't want to be the fool, the guy who waits around hoping his wife will eventually come back to him. At first, I didn't know what my next move should be. Should I go on dating apps? Find someone at work? The idea of throwing myself into the dating scene after being married for years felt exhausting. But then an opportunity practically landed in my lap. Evelyn had always been around. As Marlene's younger sister, she was a constant presence at our house, dropping by for coffee, crashing on our couch when she had a late shift, or just spending time with us because she and Marleene were close. Or at least they used to be. I never thought much about her. She was just family, someone I'd known for years, someone I never saw that way. But after Marlene's revelation, something changed in me. It was like a switch flipped. I started noticing things I hadn't before. The way Evelyn's laugh was lighter, freer than Marlene's, the way she actually listened when I talked, unlike my wife who had started checking out of our conversations months ago. The way her eyes lingered on me just a little too long when she thought I wasn't looking. It wasn't immediate, but it was inevitable. One night, Marleene was out with a friend. She hadn't even tried to hide it. She got dressed up in a way she hadn't for me in years, spritzed on expensive perfume, and gave me a half-hearted, "Don't wait up." I watched her leave without a word, my hands gripping the armrests of my chair so tightly my knuckles turned white. An hour later, Evelyn knocked on the door. She had been planning to stay over because of some early morning thing she had in the city. Marleene had told her it was fine. Of course she did. My wife wasn't worried about leaving me alone. She thought she had full control of the situation. That night, everything shifted. Evelyn and I sat on the couch, a movie playing in the background that neither of us were really watching. I could feel her eyes on me, and for the first time, I let myself hold her gaze. I let the silence between us stretch, thick with something unspoken. She was the first to break it. "You okay?" she asked, her voice softer than usual. "Yeah," I lied. She tilted her head, studying me. "Marleene told me about everything." I swallowed hard. I should have been angry that my wife had shared something so personal with her sister, but at the same time I was grateful. It meant I didn't have to pretend. It meant Evelyn already knew the mess I was stuck in. "And I think she's making a mistake," she added, forcing a smirk, trying to play it off like I didn't care. That was all it took. It started with conversation, then a drink, then another, then laughter that felt real for the first time in months. And then, before I could even process what was happening, Evelyn was leaning in, and I wasn't stopping her. When our lips met, I should have pulled away. I should have thought about the consequences, about Marleene, about the sheer insanity of what I was doing. But I didn't, because for the first time in a long time, I felt wanted, and I wasn't about to let that go. The moment our lips touched, it was like something inside me shattered and rebuilt itself in the same breath. I had spent months feeling like a shadow in my own marriage, watching Marleene drift further and further away while I stood there helpless to stop it. But this was different. This was real. Evelyn's lips were warm, soft, hesitant at first, but when she felt me respond, she deepened the kiss like she had been waiting for this moment just as much as I had. And maybe she had, but as quickly as it started, reality slammed into me like a freight train. I pulled back, running a hand through my hair, my mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. What the hell am I doing? I looked at Evelyn, expecting to see regret in her eyes, but all I saw was understanding. She wasn't apologizing. She wasn't running. She was just there watching me, waiting. "I shouldn't have done that," I muttered, shaking my head. "Why?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I opened my mouth, but no word came out. "Why? Because of Marleene?" The same Marleene who was probably in some stranger's arms right now, pretending our marriage was still intact while she indulged in her little experiment? Because of morality? The same morality that had been thrown out the window the moment she suggested an open marriage. I had nothing, no real reason, just the ghost of the man I used to be clinging to an idea that no longer existed. Evelyn leaned back against the couch, pulling her legs up beneath her. "You're allowed to be happy, you know?" she said, watching me with those sharp, perceptive eyes of hers. "You don't have to keep punishing yourself." I laughed bitterly. Is that what this looks like? Self-punishment? I don't know. You tell me. I sighed, rubbing my temples. I don't want to be that guy." "What guy?" "The guy who gets back at his wife by running into the arms of someone else. The guy who makes impulsive decisions out of spite. The guy who falls for the one person who actually sees him." My breath caught in my throat. She had me there. The truth was, I didn't want revenge. I wasn't looking for payback. If that was all this was, I could have picked up my phone, downloaded an app, and found someone within minutes. But I hadn't, because deep down it wasn't about Marleene anymore. It was about me, about what I wanted, about what I deserved. And what scared me the most was that I was starting to realize maybe, just maybe, I deserved this. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I let go. I leaned in again, slower this time, giving her the chance to pull away. But she didn't. She met me halfway, her fingers curling into my shirt as she kissed me again. And this time, I didn't stop. We didn't talk about Marleene. We didn't talk about what this meant or where it was heading. We didn't talk at all. For one night, I let myself feel something other than anger, other than resentment, other than loss. And for the first time in a long, long time, I felt whole. But the universe has a funny way of reminding you that happiness is never that simple. Because just as Evelyn and I were sitting there, lost in a world that didn't belong to us, my phone buzzed on the table. And when I glanced at the screen, my stomach dropped. It was Marleene, and she was coming home early. The moment my phone lit up with Marlene's name, the air in the room changed. My heart pounded in my chest as if trying to escape the inevitable disaster barreling toward me. My first instinct was to ignore it, To pretend even just for a few more hours that none of this was happening, that Evelyn and I existed in a bubble untouched by the outside world. But reality had a way of creeping in when you least expected it. Evelyn saw my face pale as I stared at the screen, and for the first time that night, I saw hesitation flicker in her eyes. "Is that her?" she asked, already knowing the answer. I nodded, swallowing hard. "She's coming home early." The words hung between us, heavy and unspoken. Evelyn pulled away slightly, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear as she exhaled slowly. "Do you want me to leave?" That question hit harder than I expected. It should have been simple. The obvious answer should have been yes. She should go and we should pretend nothing ever happened. But the problem was, I didn't want to pretend. I didn't want to go back to being the husband waiting at home while my wife treated our marriage like a game. I didn't want to return to that hollow version of myself who accepted whatever scraps of love Marleene decided to throw my way. And I sure as hell didn't want Evelyn to leave. But what choice did I have? I forced a small, reluctant smile and nodded. "Yeah, it's probably for the best." She hesitated for a second, studying me like she was searching for something, some hint of what I was really thinking. And then, with a slow nod, she stood up and smoothed out her sweater. "All right," she said quietly. "I'll go." I walked her to the door, my hands itching to reach for her, to stop her, to do something. But instead, I shoved them into my pockets and bit the inside of my cheek until the words I wanted to say dissolved on my tongue. She paused in the doorway, glancing back at me one last time. "This isn't over, you know?" I let out a short, dry laugh. "No, it's not." And with that, she was gone. I barely had time to process what had just happened before the sound of tires crunching against the gravel driveway made my stomach twist into knots. A moment later, the front door swung open, and there she was. Marleene stood in the doorway, her hair slightly disheveled, the scent of expensive perfume clinging to her like a ghost. She looked surprised to see me standing there, like she had expected to come home to an empty house. That alone told me everything I needed to know about where she had been. "Hey," she said, tilting her head slightly as she shrugged off her coat. "You're still up." I crossed my arms, leaning against the door frame. "Yeah, couldn't sleep." Her eyes flickered with something. Guilt, annoyance, it was hard to tell. But she didn't ask why. Instead, she walked past me, heading straight for the kitchen like nothing was out of the ordinary. Like she hadn't just spent the evening with someone else while her husband sat at home drowning in the wreckage of their marriage. I followed her, my pulse pounding in my ears. "How was your night?" I asked, keeping my tone even. She glanced at me over her shoulder, her expression unreadable. "Good." That was it. Good. Like I was supposed to just accept that and move on. Something inside me snapped. Maybe it was the way she said it so casually, as if she hadn't just shattered everything we built together. Maybe it was the fact that just a few minutes ago I had been sitting on this very couch with her sister, experiencing something real for the first time in years. Or maybe it was the fact that in that moment, I realized I didn't care anymore. I didn't care where she had been. I didn't care who she had been with, because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't the one being left behind. "You know," I said, leaning against the counter as I studied her carefully, "I've been thinking a lot about this whole open marriage thing." She turned to face me, curiosity flickering in her eyes. "Yeah." I nodded slowly. "Yeah, and you're right. Maybe we did get married too young. Maybe we do need to experience other people." A slow smile spread across her lips, and for the first time in months, she actually looked pleased with me. "I'm glad you're finally seeing it that way." Oh, if only she knew. I took a deep breath, letting the weight of what I was about to say settle over me. "So, I've been seeing someone too." That wiped the smile right off her face. Her posture stiffened slightly, her fingers tightening around the glass of water she had just poured. "Oh," she said, forcing a neutral expression. "I mean, that's the point of this, right? That's good." She was trying so hard to act indifferent, but I could see the cracks forming beneath the surface. The rules had changed the moment she suggested this open marriage. She had assumed she would be the one in control, that I would sit quietly on the sidelines while she indulged in her newfound freedom. But now the game was different. "Yeah," I said, watching her closely. "She's amazing. Younger, full of energy." We just clicked. Her jaw clenched. "And who exactly is this amazing woman?" I let the silence stretch between us, savoring the way her breath hitched just slightly. And then, with a slow, deliberate smirk, I gave her the answer she never saw coming. "You already know her pretty well," I said, my voice dripping with satisfaction. "Evelyn." The room fell into dead silence. Marleene didn't speak. She didn't move. She just stared at me as if her brain was short-circuiting, trying to process the words she had just heard. Her mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. And in that moment, I saw it. The realization, the betrayal, the same betrayal I had felt when she first suggested this nightmare. And for the first time in a long, long time, I felt like I had finally won. The silence between us was suffocating. Marlene's expression went from confusion to horror in a matter of seconds, her lips parting as if to say something, but no words came. I had imagined this moment 100 times in my head, wondered how she'd react if she found out she wasn't the only one enjoying the freedom of our open marriage. But nothing could have prepared me for actually seeing it. The way her eyes widened, the way her fingers gripped the edge of the countertop like she needed to steady herself. It was the first time in a long time that she wasn't the one in control. "You're lying." Her voice was flat, but I could hear the slight tremor beneath it. I leaned against the kitchen island, arms crossed, watching her carefully. "Why would I lie?" I asked, tilting my head slightly. "Isn't this what you wanted? A marriage where we could both experience new things? I thought you'd be happy for me." She blinked rapidly, her face paling. I could almost hear the gears turning in her head as she tried to piece together how this had happened. She probably thought she had full control of this situation, that I would be too broken, too hesitant, too loyal to actually go through with it. But she had underestimated just how far she had pushed me. Her throat bobbed as she swallowed hard. "You're saying you and Evelyn?" I shrugged, enjoying the moment a little too much. "It just happened. You were out, she was here, and we started talking. You know how she is. She actually listens. It's been a while since I've had that." That last part was a direct hit. She flinched like she had just been slapped. For months, I had been nothing more than a background character in my own marriage. Marleene had made sure of that. But now, for the first time, she was forced to see me, really see me, not as the passive husband who would quietly accept whatever she threw at me, but as someone capable of making choices of his own. She ran a hand through her hair, exhaling sharply. This is insane. She's my sister." "Funny," I said, raising an eyebrow. "You didn't seem to care about us when you started seeing other people." She turned away, gripping the sink like it could somehow ground her. "This is different." "Why?" I challenged, stepping closer. "Because you don't like the idea of me having options? Because it was supposed to be your game, not mine." She spun back around, her eyes flashing. "Because it's Evelyn, for God's sake. Do you have any idea how messed up that is?" I let out a cold laugh. "And you don't think this whole situation is messed up? You were the one who wanted this, Marleene. You were the one who asked for an open marriage. You were the one who decided our vows didn't matter anymore. And now that I've done the same thing, you suddenly have a problem." She opened her mouth, then closed it. She had no argument, no defense, because deep down she knew I was right. I watched her struggle to find a response, to twist the situation into something that made her the victim, but there was no coming back from this. No excuse that could justify what she had done while condemning me for doing the exact same thing. Finally, she let out a sharp breath, shaking her head. "I can't believe you did this." I laughed again, but there was no humor in it. "Neither can I admitted. "But you pushed me to it. You made me feel like I didn't matter anymore, like I was just some piece of furniture in your life, something you could push aside whenever it was convenient. And maybe for a while I let you, but not anymore." Her face twisted in frustration, in disbelief, in something that almost resembled regret. Almost. "This isn't how it was supposed to go." I smirked. "Yeah, well, neither was our marriage." The weight of my words hung in the air between us, and for the first time in a long time, I saw something in her eyes that I hadn't seen in months. Fear. Not fear of me, but fear of losing control. Fear that the little game she had started had spiraled out of her hands. And it had. I picked up my phone and turned away from her, heading toward the living room. "Where you going?" she asked, her voice laced with something desperate. "To bed," I said simply. "I've had a long night." And I left her standing there, speechless, staring after me like she had just woken up from a dream and realized it was actually a nightmare. For once, it wasn't my nightmare. It was hers. I barely slept that night, not because I was feeling guilty. No, that ship had sailed the moment Marleene suggested the so-called open marriage. It was because for the first time in a long time I felt awake. The fog I'd been living in, the quiet acceptance of being a secondary character in my own life, was gone. I wasn't just reacting to Marlene's choices anymore. I had made one of my own. And the best part? She couldn't handle it. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, waiting. I expected her to come storming in, to demand an explanation, to try to twist this into something that made her the victim. But she didn't. The house was eerily silent. I could almost hear the gears turning in her head as she sat in the other room, trying to process the fact that the husband she had taken for granted had just turned the tables on her. When I finally did drift off, it was to the image of her wide, stunned eyes the moment she realized she wasn't the only one with options. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee. For a split second, I thought maybe things had gone back to normal, that maybe in some twisted way this had all been a bad dream. But then I stepped into the kitchen and saw Marleene sitting at the table, a full cup of coffee in front of her. Mine, not hers. She had made it exactly how I liked it. I narrowed my eyes. "What's this?" She glanced up, her expression carefully neutral. "I made you coffee." "I can see that," I said. "I didn't touch it." "Why?" She let out a slow breath, stirring her own cup absent-mindedly. "I couldn't sleep." I leaned against the counter, crossing my arms. "Neither could I." She looked up at me then, really looked at me, for the first time in what felt like years. There was something in her gaze that wasn't indifference, wasn't that distant, detached boredom I had grown so used to. There was something raw, something unsettled. "I didn't expect you to actually do it," she admitted quietly. I let out a dry laugh. "That makes two of us." She pressed her lips together, staring into her coffee like it held the answers she was searching for. "It was supposed to be different." I raised an eyebrow. "Different how?" "I don't know," she muttered. I thought it would bring us closer. I thought we'd come back to each other in the end." That was rich. I almost laughed again, but there was something in her voice, something almost desperate. "You thought sleeping with other people would somehow fix our marriage?" She flinched at my bluntness. "I thought it would remind us why we chose each other in the first place." I shook my head, exhaling slowly. "Marleene, that's not how it works. You don't throw away loyalty and expect love to just come back on its own." She finally met my gaze again, and for the first time in forever, I saw it. The regret. It was faint, buried beneath layers of denial, but it was there. "How long has it been going on?" she asked suddenly. I tilted my head. "What?" "You and Evelyn," she clarified, her voice tight. "How long?" I could have lied. I could have twisted the knife deeper. But I didn't need to. The truth was enough. "Last night." Her eyes widened slightly, but she masked it quickly. "Just once." I nodded. "Just once." She let out a slow breath, nodding to herself as if trying to make sense of it. "And was it?" She trailed off, unable to finish the sentence. I knew what she was asking. Did it mean anything? Was it just revenge? Was it just a heat-of-the-moment decision? But the answer wasn't simple. "I don't know," I admitted. "Maybe, maybe not. But I do know one thing." She swallowed hard. "What's that?" I stared at her for a long moment, then said the one thing that would shake her to her core. "I don't think I love you anymore." The words hung in the air between us, heavy and irreversible. Her breath hitched. For the first time since this whole mess started, She looked genuinely scared. "You don't mean that," she whispered. I sighed. "Maybe I do, maybe I don't. But you were willing to risk our marriage for this, for some experiment, and now you're upset that I played by the same rules." She shook her head quickly. "That's not. I never thought." "You never thought I'd actually do it?" I finished for her, nodding slowly. "Yeah, I figured that out last night." The silence stretched between us again, but this time it wasn't the same. This wasn't the cold, distant silence we had gotten used to. This was something else entirely. Marleene set her cup down with shaking hands. "So what happens now?" That was the million-dollar question, wasn't it? And the scary part was I didn't know the answer. Not yet. But for the first time in a long time, I was ready to find out. Marlene's question hung in the air between us, heavy and suffocating. "So what happens now?" For the first time in years, I was the one holding the cards, the one with the power, and the look in her eyes told me she knew it. She wasn't used to this, to being uncertain, to losing. She had been so sure of herself when she first brought up the open marriage, so confident that she had me figured out. She thought I would wait for her, that I would be the safety net she could always fall back on while she had her fun. But now, she wasn't so sure anymore. I took my time answering, letting the silence stretch, watching as she shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "I don't know, Marleene," I finally said, running a hand through my hair. "You tell me. You were the one who wanted this." She opened her mouth, then closed it, her fingers tightening around her coffee cup. I didn't think it would turn out like this." I let out a cold chuckle. "No? What exactly did you think would happen? That you'd get to sleep with whoever you wanted while I just sat here, smiling and waiting for you to come home?" Her jaw clenched. "That's not fair." I raised an eyebrow. "Fair, Marleene? Nothing about this has been fair. You changed the rules of our marriage without asking me how I felt about it. You didn't care how I felt about it. And now that I've done the same thing, you suddenly want to talk about fairness." She looked away, guilt flashing across her face. I wasn't letting her off that easily. "Did you even stop to think about what this would do to me? Or was I just convenient? Someone to come home to when you were done having your fun?" She flinched at that. "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like?" I demanded. Her hands trembled slightly as she set her cup down, staring at it like it held all the answers she suddenly didn't have. "I was scared," she admitted finally. "Scared that we had become too routine, that we were just going through the motions. I didn't want to wake up one day and realize I had wasted my life." I laughed bitterly. "And what about me, Marleene? Did you ever stop to think that maybe I felt the same way, that maybe I was scared of losing us? But instead of talking to me, instead of trying, you decided the solution was to break everything apart." She exhaled sharply, shaking her head. "I thought it would make us stronger." That hit me harder than I expected, because for a split second, I saw the truth in her eyes. The fear, the regret, the realization that she had made a mistake she couldn't take back. But it was too late. I leaned against the counter, crossing my arms. "And now, do you still think that?" She didn't answer. I sighed, running a hand over my face. "Marleene, I don't know if I can do this anymore." Her head snapped up, panic flashing across her face. "Wait, what does that mean?" I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "It means I don't know if I can be with someone who saw our marriage as an experiment. Someone who was willing to risk everything because she got bored." Her breath hitched. "You're saying you want to leave me?" "I don't know," I admitted. "But I know one thing. I can't go back to the way things were, and I don't think you can either." Tears welled in her eyes, but she blinked them away quickly, as if refusing to let herself break in front of me. "So, what do you want?" I shook my head slowly. "I wanted us, Marleene, but I don't think us exists anymore." She sucked in a sharp breath, her hands gripping the edge of the table like she needed something to hold on to. "I can fix this," she said suddenly, her voice cracking. I'll end it. The open marriage, the other people, everything. I'll stop." I studied her carefully, searching for something, some proof that she actually meant it. And maybe she did. Maybe she really was ready to throw it all away to keep me. But the problem was, I didn't know if that was enough anymore, because I had already stepped into something new, and I wasn't sure I wanted to step back. I exhaled, rubbing my temples. It's not that simple. Her eyes widened. It is that simple. I made a mistake. I see that now. I don't want to lose you. I let out a slow breath. And I don't want to be someone's second choice. Silence. Pure, suffocating silence. Marlene's face crumbled, her composure finally breaking. She opened her mouth like she wanted to say something, but no words came, and for the first time, I realized maybe she didn't have any left. Maybe there was nothing left to say. I turned away before she could see the emotions flickering across my own face, before she could see that I wasn't as unaffected as I pretended to be. I need time, I said quietly, to figure out what I want. Her voice was barely a whisper. And Evelyn? I hesitated. I hadn't figured that part out yet. But one thing was clear. I couldn't ignore what had happened between us, what was still happening between us. I don't know, I said honestly. She sucked in a sharp breath, nodding stiffly. Okay. But we both knew okay was a lie. Nothing about this was okay, and it never would be again. The silence stretched between us, heavy and unrelenting. Marleene sat there, her hands gripping the edge of the table, her face pale, her eyes darting over mine as if she were searching for something. Some sign that I would change my mind, that I would say, just kidding, that I would laugh and pretend none of this had happened. But I wasn't that man anymore. For years, I had been the one to compromise, the one to hold on, the one to make things work, and where had it gotten me? I had allowed myself to become an afterthought in my own marriage, a placeholder for someone who wanted more without ever stopping to appreciate what she already had. I wasn't going to be that man anymore. I let out a slow, measured breath. I've made my decision, I said finally, my voice calm but firm. I'm done, Marleene. Her whole body tensed like she had been hit with a physical blow. You're leaving me? I nodded. Yeah, I am. She shook her head rapidly, her breath coming in short, panicked gasps. No, wait. We can fix this. We can go to therapy. We can. I raised a hand, stopping her. Marleene, it's not just about what you want anymore. You had your chance to fight for this marriage, and instead you fought for freedom from it. You made your choice, and now I'm making mine. Tears spilled over her cheeks. I don't want to lose you, I sighed, running a hand through my hair. You lost me a long time ago, and it was true. The moment she had looked me in the eyes and told me she wanted to be with other men, the moment she had stripped our marriage down to something casual, something temporary, she had already lost me. I just hadn't realized it yet. She let out a choked sob, her hands gripping the table like she needed something solid to hold on to. And Evelyn? She asked quietly, barely able to get the words out. I exhaled, thinking about her, about how she had been there, about how she had made me feel seen again, about how in one single night she had reminded me that I was worth more than being someone's backup plan. I didn't know what the future held for us. Maybe we were just a moment of clarity for each other, or maybe she was something more. But I wasn't making decisions based on fear anymore. I shrugged slightly. Evelyn and I? We'll see what happens. Marleene let out a shaky breath, staring down at the table as if the weight of everything had finally hit her all at once. And maybe it had. Maybe for the first time she was seeing the truth of what she had done, not just to our marriage but to me. I didn't stay to console her. That wasn't my job anymore. Instead, I turned and walked toward the front door, grabbing my keys from the counter. As I stepped outside, the morning sun hit my face, warm and inviting. It was strange. I had been so afraid of this moment, of leaving behind the life I had built with Marleene, of stepping into the unknown. But now that I was here, now that I had made my decision, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Relief. Freedom. I got into my car, gripping the steering wheel as a slow smile spread across my lips. This wasn't the end. This was just the beginning.